The stars shimmered against the dark canvas of space as the Terran diplomatic vessel Olive Branch glided smoothly through the void. Captain Alan Carter stood on the observation deck, his eyes fixed on the distant glow of Proxima Centauri. His weathered face, lined from years of tense negotiations and diplomatic missions, remained calm and thoughtful. For over 100 years, humans had served as the peacekeepers of the galaxy. After discovering faster-than-light travel, they had quickly proven themselves not through military might, but through an uncanny ability to understand conflict and find common ground between warring species. It was a role that suited humanity well, a chance to redeem their own bloody history by preventing others from making the same mistakes. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Epsilon 9, said Communications Officer Lisa Winters, her voice coming through the ship's comm system. "It's coded as an emergency diplomatic intervention request." Carter sighed and turned away from the viewport. "Route it to the briefing room. Alert Commander Powell and Lieutenant Miller to meet me there in 5 minutes." As he walked through the gleaming corridors of the Olive Branch, crew members nodded respectfully. At 53, Carter was one of the most respected human diplomats in the galaxy. His record of 36 successful peacekeeping missions without a single casualty had earned him the rare honor of a commendation from the Galactic Concord itself, the loose alliance of 17 sapient species that governed most of the known galaxy. In the briefing room, Commander Greg Powell was already reviewing data on the main screen. A practical, no-nonsense officer with short gray hair and piercing blue eyes, Powell handled the tactical aspects of their diplomatic missions. "Valthusians and Krith are at it again," Powell said without looking up. "Border dispute on Epsilon 9. Both sides claim the eastern continent's mining rights." Lieutenant Susan Miller entered the room, her arms full of data pads. As the ship's chief xenopsychologist, she was responsible for understanding the psychological and cultural aspects of the species they dealt with. Her insights had proven invaluable in countless negotiations. "The Valthusians just established a new colony there last cycle," Miller said, spreading her data pads across the table. "The Krith have been mining the region for decades but never formally claimed it under Concord law." Carter took a seat at the head of the table. "Standard procedure, then. We go in, listen to both sides, find the compromise that's been staring them in the face the whole time." "Not so standard, I'm afraid," Powell said, his voice dropping. He tapped a few commands into the table's control panel, and a series of images appeared on the main screen. "These are satellite images from Epsilon 9 taken over the last 20 days. The images showed a progression of military buildups, skirmish points, and defense installations." Carter leaned forward, his brow furrowing. "That's not right," he muttered. "The Valthusians are setting up pulse cannons on the northern ridge. That's not their style at all. They're usually defensive, setting up shield generators first. And the Krith," Miller added, pointing to another section of the map. "They're using a pincer movement attack strategy. Krith military doctrine emphasizes direct confrontation. They consider flanking to be dishonorable." Powell nodded grimly. "Exactly. Neither side is fighting according to their established cultural or military patterns. It's almost as if someone is coaching them," Carter finished. "Someone who wants this conflict to look legitimate, while ensuring maximum damage." The three officers exchanged concerned glances. This wasn't the first time they had encountered unusual patterns in supposedly natural conflicts. For years, Powell had been collecting data on peacekeeping missions throughout the sector, noticing subtle inconsistencies that didn't quite add up. "Computer, bring up file Powell Omega-7, the commander said. The screen changed to display a complex web of data points spanning dozens of star systems and dates going back nearly 20 years. "I've been tracking anomalies in conflict zones where human mediators have been deployed," Powell explained. "Unusual weapon shipments, mercenary movements, communications on non-standard channels. Individually, none of them mean much, but together. AE. Pattern," Carter said softly. "Someone's been manipulating these conflicts." Miller studied the data with growing alarm. "But why? What would anyone gain from creating conflicts just so we can resolve them?" "That's what I couldn't figure out," Powell admitted. "Until now." He highlighted a series of resource transfers and financial transactions that followed each resolved conflict. After we broker peace, certain mining rights get renegotiated. Shipping routes change. Small, seemingly inconsequential adjustments to the agreements. But look who benefits each time. The name Consortium appeared across multiple data points. Never heard of them, Carter said. That's because they don't officially exist, Powell replied. They operate through dozens of shell corporations and proxy entities. I've spent 3 years tracking them, and I'm still not sure who's really behind it. The ship's intercom chimed. Captain, we're 6 hours from Epsilon 9, the navigator announced. Carter stood up, his mind racing. Keep this between us for now. We need more information before we bring this to Earth Command. If someone is manipulating galactic conflicts and using human peacekeepers as their cleanup crew, we need to understand the full scope of the operation. What about Epsilon 9? Miller asked. There are civilians in the crossfire. We proceed as normal, Carter decided. We go in, negotiate peace, save lives, but we keep our eyes open. Powell, I want you digging deeper into these consortium connections. Miller, when we meet with the Valthusian and Krith leaders, look for signs of outside influence or coaching. The meeting ended and his officers filed out. Carter remained at the table, staring at the web of connections on the screen. In a century of serving as the galaxy's mediators, humans had built a reputation for fairness and wisdom. The thought that someone might be using that reputation, using him as a tool for profit or power, made his blood boil. The olive branch continued its journey to Epsilon 9, its hull gleaming white against the blackness of space, the universal symbol of Terran diplomatic corps, an olive branch wrapped around a blue globe, displayed proudly on its side. To all outward appearances, it was just another human peacekeeping mission. Only Carter and his senior officers knew they might be heading into something far more complex and dangerous than a simple border dispute. In his private quarters, Carter reviewed the files on the Valthusian and Krith leaders he would soon be meeting. Governor Selk of the Valthusian colony was relatively new to her position, appointed just before the colony was established. General Drav of the Krith forces had a long military record, but strangely, had been reassigned to Epsilon 9 just weeks before the conflict erupted. Computer, run background checks on both Governor Selk and General Drav. Look for any connections to entities linked to this consortium, Carter ordered. Working, the computer replied. This will take approximately 3 hours due to encryption levels and cross-referencing requirements. Carter walked to his viewport and stared out at the streaming stars. For over 30 years, he had dedicated his life to peace. He had sat across negotiation tables from beings with tentacles, exoskeletons, and even gaseous forms. He had learned to speak 12 alien languages and to interpret the subtle body language of species whose evolutionary paths diverged from humans billions of years ago. All that time, had he been nothing but a tool, a convenient problem solver for some hidden organization's profit scheme? As the olive branch approached Epsilon 9, the true nature of humanity's role in the galaxy was about to be questioned in ways Captain Alan Carter had never imagined. The Peacekeepers were sailing into a trap of their own making, and the consequences would reshape the balance of power throughout known space. The olive branch entered orbit around Epsilon 9, a small moon with swirling blue-green clouds covering its surface. From space, there was no sign of the conflict tearing apart the colonies below. Captain Carter stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as it showed the positions of both Valthusian and Krith forces. They've agreed to a temporary ceasefire for our arrival, Communications Officer Lisa Winters reported. Both leaders will meet us at the Neutral Conference Facility in the Central Region. Carter nodded. Standard procedure. Commander Powell, Lieutenant Miller, you'll accompany me to the surface. Lieutenant Winters, keep channels open to both sides. I want to know immediately if either breaks the ceasefire. As the diplomatic team prepared to depart, Dr. Olivia Bennett rushed onto the bridge. The ship's data analyst rarely left her lab, preferring the company of algorithms and patterns to people. Her sudden appearance, with dark circles under her eyes and her curly hair even more disheveled than usual, caught everyone's attention. Captain, you need to see this, she said, thrusting a datapad toward Carter. I've been analyzing the communication patterns between Epsilon 9 and the surrounding systems over the past 6 months. Carter took the pad, scanning the complex graphs and diagrams. What am I looking at, Doctor? Evidence, Bennett said, her voice tight with urgency. 3 days before the first border incident, there were encrypted transmissions sent to both the Valthusian governor's compound and the Krith military headquarters. The encryption is unlike anything used by either species. Powell leaned in to look at the data. Source? A relay station in the Nixian belt, Bennett replied. Untraceable, beyond that, but the pattern matches others I found when I went looking through our records of previous conflicts. Carter handed the pad back to Bennett. Good work, Doctor. Join us on the surface. We may need your expertise. The shuttle descended through Epsilon 9's turbulent atmosphere. Through the viewport, they could see the impact of the conflict. Smoke, rising from the eastern horizon, the flicker of defense shields around settlements, weapon emplacements dotting the ridgelines. All this over mining rights, Miller said quietly. Or at least that's what they think it's about. The neutral conference facility was a dome-shaped building on a plateau, constructed when the first settlers arrived decades ago. Inside, under the watchful eyes of both Valthusian and Krith security teams, a large circular table dominated the main chamber. Governor Selk of the Valthusians arrived first. Tall and slender with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights, she moved with the fluid grace typical of her species. General Drav of the Krith followed shortly after. Stocky and muscular with tough ridged skin and mottled browns and greens, he stomped to his place at the table, his forearms crossed in different positions to signal his displeasure. Captain Carter, Selk said, her voice musical despite the tension. The Valthusian people welcome your mediation in this unfortunate dispute. Unfortunate? Drav growled, the translator barely keeping up with his rapid speech. Your people invaded territory that has been Krith mining land for generations. Legally unclaimed territory, Selk countered smoothly. The Galactic Concord's own records show. Carter raised his hand and both aliens fell silent. This respect for human mediators had been earned over a century of successful peacekeeping. We will examine all claims and records. Both sides will have equal time to present their case, but first I want to be clear about something. He looked directly at each leader in turn. I'm not interested in the conflict you want me to see. I'm interested in the one you're actually fighting, and who instructed you to fight it. The room fell silent. The two leaders exchanged glances. A small gesture, but Miller caught it and nodded slightly to Carter. There was definitely something more happening here. I don't understand, Selk said, but her shimmering had intensified. A sign of stress in Valthusians. Let me be more direct, Carter said, placing his hands on the table. 3 days before the first border incident, both of you received encrypted communications from the Nixian belt. Since then, your forces have been fighting in ways that contradict your species' typical military doctrines. You're not just fighting over mining rights. You're following someone else's script. General Drav's upper right hand moved toward a concealed weapon, but Powell was faster. The commander had his stunner out and aimed before the Krith could complete the motion. That would be unwise, General, Powell said calmly. Dr. Bennett stepped forward, activating a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed communication, patterns, resource movements, and financial transactions connected to Epsilon 9. Someone called the consortium has been manipulating both of your governments, Bennett explained. They created this conflict knowing that humans would eventually be called in to resolve it. Once peace is established, certain arrangements would be made. Mining rights granted to shell corporations, shipping contracts adjusted, all benefiting this hidden organization. Governor Selk's shimmer had become almost painful to look at. We were approached by representatives. They said they had evidence the Krith were planning to attack. They offered security arrangements, advanced weapons. We believed them. They told us the Valthusians had discovered a new vein of quantium crystals and were hiding it from the conquered, Drav admitted, all four arms now lowered in a gesture of defeat. They showed us surveillance, supply movements. It seemed genuine. Security Chief Frank Martinez, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. Tall and broad-shouldered with a perpetual frown, he was responsible for the safety of the diplomatic team. "Captain, we've got a problem," he said in a low voice. "I've been scanning the facility. There are explosive devices planted throughout the structure, remote-triggered." Carter didn't flinch. "How long to disarm them?" "Too many. Minutes at best." Carter turned back to the alien leaders. "We're leaving. All of us. Now." "What? Why?" Selk asked, her shimmer now a frantic pulse. "Because whoever manipulated you into this conflict never intended for us to succeed," Carter explained as Martinez began herding everyone toward the exit. "They wanted us here, in this room, trying to make peace. And now they want us dead." The evacuation was orderly but quick. Human diplomatic teams were trained for emergency situations, though they rarely encountered them. As they reached the shuttles outside, Powell received an alert from the Olive Branch. "Captain, the ships detected 2 vessels dropping out of FTL at the edge of the system," he reported. "Unknown configuration, not broadcasting identification." Carter made a decision. "Get everyone aboard the shuttles. Winters, contact the ship. Tell them to prepare for emergency departure as soon as we're aboard." As the shuttles lifted off, the conference facility exploded in a blinding flash that lit up the plateau. The shockwave buffeted their craft, but the pilot, a steady-handed woman named Kelly Wright, kept them on course. In orbit, the Olive Branch was already powering up its engines, its sleek white hull gleaming against the backdrop of space. The unknown vessels were approaching rapidly, their intent clear from their direct course. "Captain, they're charging weapons," the tactical officer reported as Carter reached the bridge. For 100 years, human diplomatic vessels had traveled unarmed. Throughout the galaxy, their neutrality and peacekeeping mission their only protection. The attacking ships clearly believed the Olive Branch would be defenseless. Carter took his seat in the command chair, his expression grim. "It seems our friends from the consortium don't want their operation exposed. Lieutenant Winters, send an emergency transmission to Earth Command. Include all of Dr. Bennett's data." He turned to Powell. "Commander, it's time to show them why it was a mistake to target human peacekeepers." Powell nodded, understanding the significance of what was about to happen. "Security Protocol Alpha 9 Delta. Authorization Powell Echo 72. The ship's computer responded instantly. Security protocol confirmed. Weapon systems initializing." Throughout the ship, hidden compartments opened, revealing weapon systems that had been concealed beneath the peaceful exterior. Along the hull, sections shifted and reconfigured, exposing pulse cannons and missile launchers that no diplomatic vessel was supposed to possess. The attacking ships hesitated, clearly surprised by the transformation taking place before them. "I believe," Carter said quietly, "that the galaxy is about to learn something new about humanity today." The bridge of the Olive Branch hummed with a new energy as hidden systems came online. The crew, trained for diplomacy but prepared for combat, moved with practiced efficiency to battle stations they had never before used in real situations. "Weapons. Systems ready, Captain," reported Tactical Officer Sam Wilson, his fingers dancing across controls that had been concealed beneath his standard console. "Defensive shields at maximum." The 2 attacking vessels hesitated, clearly surprised by the transformation of what should have been an unarmed diplomatic ship. Their hesitation gave Carter the moment he needed. "Open a channel," he ordered. Lieutenant Winters nodded. "Channel open. This is Captain Alan Carter of the Terran vessel Olive Branch. We are aware of your connection to the consortium and your manipulation of the conflict on Epsilon 9. Stand down immediately or face the consequences." There was a pause, then a response came through. The view screen showed a human man with cold eyes and a thin smile. His uniform bore no insignia or identification. "Captain Carter, how disappointing to find you so prepared. But it changes nothing. The consortium has operated unchallenged for decades. Your single ship, however surprisingly equipped, cannot hope to stand against us." Carter's expression remained calm. "You misunderstand. We're not trying to stand against you. We're simply stalling you." The man's smile faltered. Stalling. Lieutenant Winters, Carter said without taking his eyes off the screen. Has our emergency transmission been received by Earth Command? Yes, Captain. Received and acknowledged. Response incoming. The man on the screen now looked concerned. He turned to speak to someone off-screen, then quickly cut the transmission. They're powering weapons again, Wilson reported. Both vessels targeting our engines. Evasive maneuvers, Carter ordered. Return fire, aim for their weapon systems only. I want them disabled, not destroyed. The olive branch moved with surprising agility for its size, banking hard to port. As energy beams sliced through the space it had occupied a moment before, the ship's hidden weapons responded in kind, precise bursts of energy striking one of the attacking vessels. Direct hit, Wilson announced. Their forward weapons array is offline. The second ship pressed its attack, circling around to target the olive branch from behind. A series of impacts rocked the diplomatic vessel. Shields holding at 80%, reported engineer Diane Rodriguez from her station. But they're targeting the same section repeatedly. They know what they're doing. Governor Selk and General Drav watched the battle from the observation deck, their previous hostility forgotten in the face of this revelation. We were used, Selk said softly, her skin barely shimmering now. Our people died for someone else's gain. Drav nodded, all four arms positioned in a gesture of regret. For generations we have trusted human peacekeepers. They have always been neutral, always fair. To discover this deception, not a deception by humans, Miller corrected him, joining them at the viewport. We were as much victims of the consortium as you were. We just didn't know it until now. Another impact shook the ship. Shields at 65%, Rodriguez's voice announced over the comm. In the ship's data center, Dr. Bennett worked frantically, sifting through the information they had gathered about the consortium. Security Chief Martinez stood guard at the door. I've got it, Bennett suddenly exclaimed. The consortium ships use a modified Valthusian communication protocol. If I can access their systems? Martinez moved to look over her shoulder. Can you shut them down? Better, Bennett said, her fingers flying across the interface. I can find out who they really are and where their main base is located. On the bridge, Carter received Bennett's update with grim satisfaction. Keep them busy, Mr. Wilson. We just need a little more time. The battle continued, the olive branch holding its own against the two attackers. One of the enemy ships was now visibly damaged, venting atmosphere from a breached section. Captain, Winters called out, I'm receiving a transmission from within the system. 3 Terran vessels approaching at high speed. It's the Guardian, the Protector, and the Shield Bearer. Carter allowed himself a small smile. Earth commands. Response. The comm system chimed again, and a new face appeared on the view screen. Admiral Heather Barnes, commander of the 3rd Peacekeeping Fleet, looked at Carter with a mixture of concern and pride. Captain Carter, I see you've had to reveal our little secret earlier than planned. The circumstances left us no choice. Admiral, the consortium forced our hand. Barnes nodded. We received your data package. It confirms what we've suspected for some time. Earth Command has been tracking similar patterns, but we lack the concrete evidence you've provided. The 3 newly arrived Terran ships moved into formation around the olive branch, their own hidden weapon systems now fully deployed. Against 4 armed human vessels, the remaining consortium ship quickly powered down its weapons and surrendered. The data center. Bennett let out a triumphant shout. I'm in. I've accessed their secure database. The information she uncovered flowed to screens throughout the ship. The consortium was revealed to be a shadow organization with members from multiple species, including humans. They had been manipulating conflicts throughout the galaxy for nearly 30 years, using the predictable response of human peacekeepers to clean up after their engineered wars and profit from the aftermath. They have a main base, Bennett reported, a space station in the uncharted regions beyond the Nixian belt. And Captain, they're planning something big, something called Operation Cleansing, targeted at the Elysian homeworld. Carter's blood ran cold. The Elysians were one of the newest species to join the Galactic Conquered, peaceful philosophers with a rich culture and limited defensive capabilities. Their world was also rich in quantum crystalline formations, rare minerals essential for advanced AI development. They're planning to start a war that will wipe out the Elysians, Carter said, the pieces falling into place. Then human peacekeepers would arrive too late to save them, negotiate a settlement favorable to the consortium, and they'd gain control of the quantum crystals. Admiral Barnes's expression hardened on the screen. We can't allow that to happen. Captain Carter, your ship has been compromised. Transfer to the Guardian and we'll proceed to Earth for debriefing. Carter shook his head. With respect, Admiral, there's no time. The Elysians trust the Olive Branch. We've mediated for them before. If we show up with a fleet of obviously armed vessels, they might not listen until it's too late. Barnes considered this. What are you suggesting, Captain? Let us warn them. The Olive Branch can get to the Elysian homeworld in 2 days at maximum speed. We can alert them to the threat and help them prepare while you gather a proper fleet. After a moment's thought, Barnes nodded. Approved. But, Captain, if the consortium realizes you're onto them, they'll move up their timetable. This won't be about peacekeeping anymore. I understand, Admiral. Sometimes to keep the peace, you have to be willing to fight for it. As the Olive Branch prepared to depart for Elysian space, Governor Selk and General Drav requested a meeting with Carter. We wish to accompany you, Selk said. Our people were used as pawns in this scheme. We want to help prevent it from happening to the Elysians. Drav nodded, his forearms arranged in a gesture of determination. Our forces stand ready to assist. This is a matter of honor now. Carter looked at these two leaders who, just hours ago, had been bitter enemies. The consortium's schemes had backfired in at least one way. They had united those they had tried to divide. We would welcome your help, Carter said, but understand this. Where we're going, we won't be peacekeepers. Not this time. The Olive Branch broke orbit, leaving the consortium ship in the custody of Admiral Barnes. As they prepared to jump to FTL, Carter gazed at the view screen showing Epsilon 9 growing smaller behind them. For 100 years, he said quietly to Powell, who stood beside him, humanity has been the galaxy's conscience, its mediator. After today, they'll see us differently. Powell nodded. Perhaps it's time they knew the truth. We chose peace not because we couldn't fight, but because we knew all too well what war truly costs. The Olive Branch vanished into FTL, racing toward a confrontation that would forever change humanity's role in the galaxy. The Elysian homeworld hung like a jewel in space, its surface a swirl of deep purples and blues under wispy white clouds. As the Olive Branch approached, Communications Officer Lisa Winters picked up numerous signals. Captain, there are already ships in orbit around Elysia. At least 5 vessels of unknown configuration. Carter's jaw tightened. Scan them. Compare with the consortium ship signatures. After a moment, Tactical Officer Sam Wilson confirmed what they all feared. It's them, Captain. Consortium vessels. They've already started. Dr. Bennett rushed onto the bridge, her face pale. Captain, I've completed my analysis of the consortium plans we downloaded. Operation Cleansing isn't just about taking the quantum crystals. They're planning to introduce a bioweapon into the Elysian atmosphere, something that affects only Elysian physiology. Genocide, Miller said, her voice barely above a whisper. Carter made his decision instantly. Battle stations. Lieutenant Winters, open a channel to the Elysian High Council. Tell them we come with an urgent warning and request immediate communication. As the crew prepared for what might come, Governor Selk and General Drav joined Carter on the bridge. Their people had been manipulated into conflict by the consortium, and now they were united in preventing another species from suffering an even worse fate. No response from the Elysian Council, Winters reported, but I'm detecting communications between the consortium ships and the surface. They've already infiltrated the government, Powell concluded. The Elysians don't know they're in danger. Carter stood from his command chair. Then we show them. Mr. Wilson, target the lead consortium vessel's engines only. Fire when ready. The Olive Branch dropped its diplomatic pretense entirely. Hidden weapon ports opened along its sleek hull, and precise energy beams lanced out to strike the consortium ship before it could raise its shields. Direct hit, Wilson reported. Their engines are disabled. The other consortium ships reacted, immediately, moving to surround the olive branch. But Carter had anticipated this. Now, Commander Powell. Powell nodded to Wilson, who activated a special command sequence. Throughout the ship, systems reconfigured. The name Olive Branch on the hull shimmered and changed, revealing the vessel's true designation: Terra's Wrath. All shields at maximum. Rodriguez reported from engineering. Weapon systems at full capacity. The battle erupted in Elysian orbit, the lone human vessel facing 4 consortium ships. But the Terra's Wrath was no ordinary vessel. Its hidden capabilities, designed for exactly this type of situation, made it more than a match for its opponents. On the Elysian surface, the High Council watched in confusion as their orbital monitors showed the conflict unfolding above their world. The human diplomatic vessel is fighting? Elder Kieran asked, his long, slender limbs trembling with concern. This cannot be. Beside him, another figure spoke smoothly. The humans have clearly betrayed the principles of peace. They come with weapons to take your quantum crystals for themselves. This advisor, who had introduced himself as Representative Jordan Blake of a trade consortium, had gained the Council's trust over the past months. Now he used that trust to turn them against their potential saviors. But Elder Kieran was not so easily deceived. If the humans wanted our resources, they could have taken them long ago. They have always been fair mediators. This is something else. Back in orbit, the Terra's Wrath continued its fight against overwhelming odds. One consortium ship was already disabled, venting atmosphere. Another had broken off, trying to reach the surface with what sensors indicated was a large biological payload. "We can't let that ship reach the atmosphere," Carter said. "Mr. Wilson, target its descent thrusters." The Terra's Wrath's weapons fired again, but the consortium ship managed to evade, continuing its plunge toward the planet. "We can't get a clean shot without risking the payload rupturing in orbit," Wilson reported. Security Chief Martinez stepped forward. "Captain, request permission to take a shuttle and intercept that ship manually. My team can board it and prevent the bioweapon deployment." Carter nodded grimly. "Go. And frank. Whatever it takes." Martinez understood. This wasn't a peacekeeping mission anymore. This was war. As Martinez and his security team raced to the shuttle bay, the Terra's Wrath positioned itself between the remaining consortium ships and the planet, taking heavy fire in the process. "Shields at 40%, Rodriguez reported, as another impact rocked the ship. "We can't keep this up much longer." Just then, new signals appeared on their scanners. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," Winters announced, her voice rising with hope. "It's Admiral Barnes and the fleet." 6 Terran vessels appeared, their own hidden weapons already deployed. The Valthusian and Krith ships that had accompanied them from Epsilon 9 joined the formation. Admiral Barnes's voice came through the comm. "Sorry we're late to the party, Captain Carter. The evidence you sent was enough to convince the Joint Chiefs to authorize immediate action." With reinforcements arriving, the tide quickly turned. The consortium ships found themselves outgunned and surrounded. All except one. The ship carrying the bioweapon was still descending toward the Elysian atmosphere, with Martinez's shuttle in pursuit. Inside the consortium ship, the crew prepared to release the bioweapon. But they hadn't counted on the determination of Chief Martinez and his team. The security officers breached the hull using specialized equipment, engaging in close-quarters combat through the corridors of the enemy vessel. Martinez himself reached the bioweapon control room, only to find the countdown already initiated. With seconds to spare, he made the ultimate sacrifice, manually overriding the release mechanism in a way that directed the weapon away from the planet, but exposed himself to lethal doses of the toxin. From the bridge of the Terra's Wrath, Carter watched as Martinez's final message came through. "Weapon contained. Tell the captain. It was an honor." There was silence on the bridge as the consortium ship exploded in the upper atmosphere, the bioweapon neutralized, but at terrible cost. In the aftermath, the surviving consortium ship surrendered. On the surface, Elder Kieran had Representative Blake arrested when evidence of his true identity was transmitted from the Terra's wrath. Admiral Barnes and Captain Carter met with the Elysian High Council to explain what had happened. The Elysians were grateful for being saved from genocide, but they were also deeply troubled by what they had witnessed. For generations we have known humans as peacekeepers, Elder Kieran said. Now we see you are warriors of terrifying efficiency, who merely chose peace. This changes things. We never lied about our commitment to peace, Carter replied. But sometimes peace must be defended with force. The consortium counted on our reputation as mediators to blind everyone to their actions. That ends today. As the human fleet prepared to depart Elysian space, news of what had happened spread rapidly throughout the Galactic Concord. Species that had once welcomed human diplomatic teams now regarded them with newfound wariness. The Peacekeepers had revealed themselves as potential warriors. In an emergency session of the Galactic Concord, representatives from all 17 member species debated humanity's true nature. The humans had prevented a genocide and exposed a criminal organization that had manipulated galactic politics for decades. But they had also revealed themselves as beings who had hidden their full capabilities. Back aboard what was now officially designated as the Terra's Wrath, Carter stood at the memorial service for Chief Martinez and the others who had given their lives to save the Elysians. Peace is not the absence of strength, he told the assembled crew. It is the wisdom to know when to use that strength and when to withhold it. For too long we let others believe we were incapable of fighting. Now they know better. As the ship we set course for Earth, Lieutenant Miller joined Carter on the observation deck. What happens now? She asked. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Carter watched the stars streaking past. Now we continue our mission, but with honesty. We are peacekeepers not because we cannot fight, but because we choose a better way first. And if others think twice before starting conflicts because they know what humans are capable of when pushed too far, perhaps that's not such a bad thing. Throughout, the galaxy species began reassessing their relationships with humanity. The age of humans as simple mediators was over. A new era had begun, one where peace was maintained not just through discussion and compromise, but through the knowledge that beneath humanity's diplomatic exterior lay the heart of a formidable defender.